Hi, thank you so much for the invitation to come to you today with a training about how to talk to your daughter about her changing body and birth control. This webinar is for parents of preteens and teens who will or are having periods. So moms of daughters who have also had challenges in their cycles and deal with painful periods, heavy periods, and want all of the options that are available. And also this training is for moms who are tired of the one-size-fits-all treatment for every female issue. Your period challenges and your daughter's period challenges are not all the same, and they do deserve individualized treatment and support. So in this training, you're going to learn about what you missed in middle school health class. Just a little hint, you didn't miss anything because the education wasn't there for you. And it's not your fault, and it's not there for your daughters at this point yet either. But just because the education wasn't there doesn't mean that it's not available now. So I want to teach you how to talk to your daughter about her changing body and how to guide her through this big topic of birth control. And finally, I want to share with you how to bring wonder, awe, and joy to your daughter's journey throughout womanhood. Hi, my name is Carrie Biebner, and I am a holistic women's health advocate. I am a leading expert in equipping parents to bring joy to the beautiful season of puberty and adolescence of their daughters. It was at the age of 31 years old when I learned for the first time that my body was made good, and that there are effective natural methods of family planning that do not include the birth control pill. I became a fertility care practitioner of the Creighton Model Fertility Care System in 2012. And now I lead a team of 5 fertility care practitioners at Ashwood Fertility Care Center. And I'm now also the national coordinator of the Guiding Star Cycle Show and the author of a new online mother-daughter course called Charting Health for Young Women. Along the way, my fertility care clients encouraged me to become a certified birth doula, and in 2015, I began to serve women in birth and families in birth. I've now attended more than 35 births as a birth doula. From the outcry of my Creighton model clients of why did I not learn about this good news about my body sooner, I went on a search for a program for young women to learn about the beauty of their natural menstrual cycles. I found the cycle show in, of all places, Germany, and I put in the work to bring this dynamic 5-hour multimedia hands-on workshop for 9 to 13-year-old girls to America. I launched the Guiding Star Cycle Show in 2019 in partnership with the Guiding Star Project. And with this message from the Guiding Star Cycle Show, we are teaching girls, I can only protect what I value and respect. I also have a husband named Aaron, and we have 3 beautiful young children, and we live in Northwest Iowa. I am confident that as we teach young women about the beauty of their natural functions, that we can change the direction of our culture to one that values the female body and the dignity of every human life because they know how it works. If you were like me and you were not taught about how your own body worked, how can we then expect us to pass this education and knowledge on to our daughters? We have been lying to women for a few generations that we need birth control or a device implanted in us to not get pregnant and to care for our painful periods, our heavy periods, or our irregular periods. When in reality, there are better options for all the challenges that your daughter or yourself have been facing. And it's important for us to realize too that when we allow a young girl to go on the birth control pill, we have to realize that she is taking something that's going to affect the trajectory of her health in her life. And a young girl might not have all of the information she needs to give consent or even allow that to really be her choice on what's going into her body and how that might change the rest of her life. I'm going to dive into this deeper with you today, but realizing that many of us who were put on the birth control pill as teens today would say, I really wish that had not happened, when we are able to get the truth and the real beauty of how our natural fertility actually works. And I can tell you that I don't have any clients that I have taught about how good their body is and how well their bodies work that have said, oh, I'm really glad I was put on that pill, or I want to go back on it. So I want to give you this education today because moms, you love your daughters and you don't want them to be in pain and you don't want them to have problems and challenges. And frankly, when we go to the doctor, sometimes the pill is the only thing that's in their toolbox. So we're going to talk more about this as well. So women have unknowingly been believing lies about what it is to be female and what it is that is required of her. They have been denied the opportunity to, what I like to say, understand, embrace, and love their natural cycles. I was 31 years old with my first child when I actually had a full understanding of how my unique natural cycles worked. And I really feel very cheated. I have since moved through this phase of understanding, embracing, and now actually loving my natural cycles. And once I was able to understand that I have a good body that has a unique natural cycle that's like no one else's, I was able to redeem that lost time of about 16 years of not knowing how wonderful it is to be a woman by planning out an epic road trip journey for my daughter as she enters into puberty. And after teaching many women and couples about their fertility with the Creighton model, they all again asked me that same question over and over again. Why didn't anyone tell me about this sooner? And why is it only when I'm actually having problems with my cycle that I learned that there was a much better way to navigate my natural cycles, even before I knew there was an issue? Also, being in this group, the mothers raising teen daughters, and hearing you ask for the help in choosing the right birth control for your daughters, it just really breaks my heart. And that is because this education has not been there for you on how the female reproductive system actually works so very beautifully. So in this, we have a twofold education need. We need to educate mothers and daughters at the same time because we have a few generations where natural fertility was not taught in schools. You see, once the birth control pill came on the market, they really stopped teaching about what happens in your body when you become pregnant, or even how you become pregnant, and what happens in your body when you're not pregnant, and how it's very good to have a period. It's very healthy and important. And they haven't taught us in a while how the ovarian hormones of estrogen and progesterone are so important to early female development. So that is my mission, and my goal is to share this with you mothers so that you can actually learn even together with your daughter, or you can learn first and share it with her. Whichever way, we're going to change our culture and allow women to have the freedom to be able to understand that they possess 4 amazing superpowers. And these superpowers are actually superpowers that allow us to bring new life into our world. And with such amazing superpowers, it really frustrates me why we aren't giving the information and the education that these young people need to understand how to actually navigate through these superpowers that they have, and even how to take care of them. It has become really normal for moms to take their daughters to the doctor for heavy bleeding and cramps and moodiness and many other of the challenges that can happen through puberty and adolescence. And oftentimes the doctor will put her on the birth control pill to regulate her cycles. Well, to be honest, the birth control pill does not regulate anything. It just shuts down. It shuts down ovulation, and actually, the longer that system, that natural system is shut down, the more ill effects can be happening as well. So I'm going to give you that information today in this training. Instead of teaching young people about the natural functions of their bodies and how to navigate natural fertility, they are given medications that shut down the natural ovulation cycle and pose negative effects on their health and well-being, and usually without knowledge of the risks that are involved. I have accepted the call to educate and support parents in guiding their daughters through puberty, adolescence, and well into womanhood. I teach the Guiding Star Cycle Show, and I have developed an online course for mothers and daughters called Charting Health for Young Women, where they can learn side by side together. And you know what? We have a lot of work before us, but I believe that if we do educate our young preteens well, that they will come to such a great knowledge of their bodies, that they will flip the script and become advocates for their unique natural cycle throughout their lifetime. Now, Dr. Elizabeth Reith-Paula, who is a doctor in Germany who developed the Cycle Show, she says that becoming enthusiastic about one's own body must be the very first step in sex education. And I 150% agree with her. And she is the one who developed the mission of, I can only protect what I value and respect. And let's just think about that, because when we care for or see our bodies as a treasure and something of value, then we will only want to protect it and care for it. And this includes choices that we decide with our bodies and many other hard choices in life as well. Unless we have value and see something that's treasured, we don't know what we're actually protecting. So I like moms to think about taking their daughters on an epic road trip journey through puberty, adolescence, and womanhood. I like to have them ask and talk about where we are going, what we need to pack, what do we need to prepare for. And I like you to let your daughter ask all the questions she would like along the way. That way, the questions will be a whole lot more entertaining than, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And she will become very comfortable coming to you with any challenge that arises in regards to her health and well-being. I can't wait till it is the norm for young women to say, I really enjoyed puberty because my mom or my female mentor was there and made it really enjoyable experience. I want families to realize that we don't need the talk anymore. Puberty and adolescence is a journey, and many educational touch points are needed along the way. There are many different young women education programs out there, and I would encourage you to dip into all of them. Find the one that is going to spark your interest more, or is going to be the right technique or method for you and your daughter. And it's really important that you do this together. And if you, mom, have not yet learned about how your own fertility works, we would love to help you out with that, because really it's important for us to learn first, and our daughters will take notice as well. My mom is taking care of her health and her fertility, and she sees that as important. I want to do that too. And then it becomes a lot more fun in journeying that with your daughter also. We need to bring awe and wonder back to reproductive education. I'm so glad that I have been able to experience the awe and wonder of my own body, and I can now gift this to my daughter. I know that some of you in the audience may have not yet experienced this awe and wonder of your body. So again, I have developed resources to educate and support parents so that they can have the vocabulary and the understanding so they can continue this education on with their daughters as they are learning. wonder and awe of how we are created and focusing on where we came from mom and dad, is really significant. And then when it comes to talking about sex, it will be coming from an already known understanding of what a gift it actually is. And what a gift it is that we can give our partner, and the gift that can come from it as far as new life, of course, right? So when we talk about how amazing it is that where we came from, this awe and wonder comes from the understanding that each of us is what's called a double champion. And at the very beginning of our life, we were chosen one sperm out of 300 million sperm that were available at the time of ejaculation. One of them was chosen, and that's you. And it's not, it might have been a different sperm that might have been better at math or looked different, but did they win? No, you did. You won. And that's really special that you were chosen out of 300 million sperm. And that was just one of the victories that you had at the beginning of your life. On the other side, you were chosen the best egg out of 400,000 eggs that were available in your mother. And so that is the second point where you were the champion. So the egg and the sperm, of course, came together to create you. And so each one of us, parents, moms, dads, we are all double champions. And that's amazing. So when I'm talking with a 10 to 13-year-old little girl and sharing this information with her, she might be, as she's going through these changes of puberty, feeling kind of down on herself. Perhaps there's things about herself that she doesn't like, or, it's really confusing, the different moods that we have during this time. But when she understands that she was created in such an amazing way, and that she was the winner sperm and the winner egg, it's just incredible to see their hearts just light up. And for them to then understand, wow, the person next to me was created in the same way. Wow, they're a double champion too. And it kind of really helps us in our respect level for all people around us. And I think that lesson alone is amazing, beyond the fact that we're teaching them how their entire reproductive system works and the awe and wonder that comes from that. I really believe that mothers need to teach this to their daughters to keep it normal and to change our culture in this way. I really want to change the mindset around our natural cycles, as well as how we approach guiding our daughters through puberty, adolescence, and womanhood. Basically, the main mindset that I feel all of us need to have, women of every age, is that my body has been made good with a unique natural cycle. And I truly want to bring joy back to puberty because it should not be a dreadful time. Great puberty support and excitement will pave the way for a great experience in talking about sex and making great choices for our children. And one of my mentors as well, January Donovan, she says that when life is an exciting adventure, they don't have time to get bored and make bad choices. Because I know many of us have a deep fear of what happens if my daughter gets pregnant. And you know what? I think our culture has put that fear in her too. Because she probably asked the same question. What will I do if I get pregnant? But here's the thing. We have to teach her how pregnancy actually occurs. And also, though we don't want our young teens to achieve a pregnancy, we need for them to know that pregnancy is not bad and that babies are not something to be in risk of. However, we do want to make good choices for the timeline and the goals and the dreams that we have set in front of us. And I don't think that it's necessary to shut down her entire reproductive system with medication or a device in order to allow her to reach those dreams and to become successful. I think the better way is to teach her right out how wonderful her body is so that she can know that it's a treasure and something of value, and that she will then learn how to protect it. And she will automatically want to because she'll see how amazing her body is. All right. When I said that your daughter has 4 female superpowers, did you think I was a little nuts? Maybe. Well, I really want you to know this for yourself and for your daughter as well. It's important for women to feel empowered in the fact that we have 4 amazing superpowers that are only available for women. The 4 female superpowers that I shared before are ovulation, gestation, lactation, and menstruation. Now, these 4 amazing powers that women have are pretty incredible. The fact that we can grow an egg, release it, and then actually create new life within our body, of course, with a sperm that needs to be contributed as well. And then we can actually feed a baby up to a year's time without any extra supplementation. It's pretty incredible. And lastly, the fact that we can bleed and don't die each cycle is pretty incredible. Now, this is something that all young girls should know about before it even happens to them, right? Because as we all know, many of us have a lot of challenges in our periods, in our ovulation cycles. And so I think something that's really helpful as well is that we understand what's happening during the ovulation cycle. So I would love to share with you now, and hopefully this isn't the first time you've heard this, but if it is, I hope I can bring some great clarity to what happens throughout a normal ovulation cycle. Okay, so there are a lot of colors and images on this screen. So I first want you to orientate yourself here a little bit. I've got 3 different areas of our body that I want to share with you. Here on this level is going to be the follicular development. So this is a undeveloped egg making its way, growing and maturing in a follicle, a cyst-like structure. And then at the moment of maturity, it releases the egg. This is called ovulation. And then after ovulation, this cyst-like structure becomes what's called the corpus luteum. The corpus luteum means yellow body in Latin. And the corpus luteum is going to continue to produce an ovarian hormone that we'll talk a little bit more about in a moment, until to very high levels. And then it's going to dissolve and the cycle ends. So this is what's happening inside of the ovary in each of our cycles, all right? So at the very beginning of a cycle is when we have our period or our menstruation, so when we're bleeding. And you can see this is actually the lining of the uterus. And so at the beginning, we have the menstrual flow phase. So the lining of our uterus is sloughing off and we are bleeding. And it's during that time that one of our 400,000 eggs that are available in our ovaries is chosen to develop in the follicle, okay? So it's important to know that as this egg is developing in the follicle, it is producing estrogen. And estrogen is a very, very important hormone that is produced before we achieve ovulation. Now, estrogen we have as a heart here because we want our young women and we want all women to know that estrogen is truly a girl's best friend. And the estrogen is actually responsible for changing your little girl into a woman. It's amazing because the estrogen does a few different great jobs. The first job that the estrogen does is it's again being produced by this growing follicle. It will go down to our cervix. And down here, I have pictures of the entire reproductive system. And this middle portion is our uterus. And at the neck of our uterus is the cervix. And the cervix is going to start producing cervical fluid. And that's not going to be in this diagram. It's going to be farther on in this one. And as the estrogen is at the cervix producing cervical mucus, the woman or the young woman can actually observe this cervical mucus on the outside of her body. And it's going to give her the understanding that she's on her way towards ovulation. That fact alone can blow some of your women's minds, because many of you have maybe seen this type of mucus and thought it was something that was showing that you're sick. And I know of moms who have taken their daughters to the doctor when they have had this, and the doctors put them on the birth control pill to make it go away. But it's actually a normal fluid that we have that tells us that ovulation is coming. So estrogen is responsible for giving us cervical mucus, which is so very important. The second job of the estrogen is it goes to the uterine lining and begins to proliferate it. So this is the proliferating phase. The estrogen is going to allow the lining of the uterus to grow and grow. You can see that in this diagram here. The lining of the uterus is beginning to build up and grow. And we like to share with our young girls that this is actually just like preparing a hotel. You are perhaps in the construction building of it, right? You're just the foundation and the bricks. It's not quite completely up to par for the luxury that's needed for a new guest like a baby, a very new special guest that might arrive. So we need actually even more special help to prepare the lining of the uterus for the possibility of a new life that may have come to the woman's body. So at this time, as the follicle is very, very large and matured, the estrogen levels are very, very high. And the cervical mucus is flowing from the woman's cervix. The lining of the uterus is starting to proliferate and grow. And then the release happens, ovulation occurs, the egg is released, and a dramatic shift happens here. This follicle is going to turn into the corpus luteum, as I shared before. And this corpus luteum now is going to begin producing large amounts of progesterone. And progesterone is the post-ovulatory hormone, which is responsible for 5 really important things. Now, I don't believe I have time to go into great detail of all of these, but it's important for you to first know that progesterone is going to inhibit all of the effects of the estrogen. It's going to dry out the cervix. So the woman will have a dramatic shift and change in what she's observing on the toilet tissue when she goes to the bathroom. Though she had an amazing amount of cervical mucus at the time of ovulation, after ovulation, that cervical mucus is going to dry up very suddenly. And also, the progesterone is going to continue to build up the lining of the uterus. And at this point, it's going to actually produce a secretory fluid on the lining of the uterus, which is here. The secretory phase, and that's going to give a nutritious antibodies, vitamins, sugars, all the things that are needed for a new human life to implant into the lining of the uterus to be able to go on towards the 9 months journey towards birth, right? Of course, this implantation only occurs if conception occurred, if fertilization happened, if sperm entered into the woman's body during the time of ovulation and was able to conceive a baby. But for the majority of us and the majority of our young women at this point, we aren't going to conceive a pregnancy. We don't have sperm going into our young bodies at this point. And so she will have this corpus luteum producing the progesterone, and then it will actually dissolve. The corpus luteum dissolves, and when that happens, the lining of the uterus that had built up will begin to shed. And that will happen again as the cycle ends and begins again with the menstrual flow phase. All right. So this was a very quick sharing with you about what happens in a natural cycle. And I realize that many of you maybe have never heard how this actually worked before, but I count it my privilege to share. I would love to share with you more in-depthly about all of these aspects, and even more so about what happens when we bring in foreign objects, devices, or the birth control pill, and how that affects our bodies as well. And I really think it's important that any time that our daughters perhaps are asking us like, hey mom, I think I really want to be on the birth control pill, maybe I'm being sexually active or whatever, I think if she hasn't had this education, it's really important for her to first learn about what the goodness of what's going on in her body. And then next, I'm going to share with you the 3 mechanisms of the birth control pill. And this is extremely important because I went on the birth control pill for about 4 to 6 months at the beginning of my marriage. And that actually was very negatively affected on my body, and perhaps was the cause of miscarrying one of my children. And that's really a big deal because I have plenty of women and couples that come to me that are having a very challenging time achieving pregnancy. And a majority of them were on the birth control pill for a large amount of their adolescent years. One really important thing too is that, yep, I just shared with you how normal cycles work, and that's beautiful. But at the beginning of puberty and adolescence, it's going to actually take 3 to 5 years for your daughter to become regular in her cycles, meaning that she has a period each month or so. So be patient with her. And putting the birth control pill in there and shutting down her ovulation is not going to be helpful in regulating her cycles. So next, I'd just like to share with you the 3 mechanisms of the birth control pill so we can have just a greater understanding of that. Okay, again, I was on the birth control pill for a few months into my marriage, and I didn't know, and again, this was at the age of 30 when I got married. I didn't know how the birth control pill worked, nor did I actually know how my female reproductive system worked as well. So I want to share this with you because when I did find out, I was pretty shocked by what was happening in my body during that time. So there are 3 mechanisms that allow the birth control pill to work. All right. So number 1, the first mechanism is that it keeps the woman from ovulating. Okay. So again, here in the ovary is where that ovulation cycle is happening. Like I shared with you, one of the 400,000 eggs is released. So the first mechanism is for the woman not to ovulate. Okay. Now we know that there are many women in the world who have still achieved a pregnancy while they were taking the pill. So we know that that doesn't always work. So the second mechanism that comes into play in the birth control pill is to thicken the mucus that is being produced here in the cervical canal, in the cervical crypts there. Remember, I shared that when the estrogen is high, we have a lot of cervical mucus being produced. I didn't share with you what that was for. The cervical mucus is needed for sperm to survive. If intercourse is had, if genital contact is had, and sperm get into the woman's body and there's no cervical mucus, the sperm can't live. They actually will die within minutes or hours. And so they will not be able to make their way to the ovary or to the end of the fallopian tube where conception can occur. If the second mechanism of the birth control pill being that it's going to thicken the cervical mucus, that is going to be a pretty good way to avoid pregnancy, right? Because it's going to have this thick mucus that the sperm can't penetrate through. It can't make its way, can't mobilize through. And in fact, this aspect of the birth control pill works so well that many times this damages the cervical crypts. So when the woman comes off the birth control pill and hopes to achieve a pregnancy, she sometimes has a hard time producing the good cervical mucus that she needs to, which will then allow her to conceive a baby. So this is really important because I have a ton of clients who come to me who are post-pill and they're trying to conceive or they're trying to grow their family, and they find out that there was damage on their cervix and their cervical crypts because of the birth control pill they were on. And that's when my heart just really breaks, because many of these women were put on the birth control pill as teens and they were just on it for a long, long time. And they didn't know what was happening to their bodies. And all of these women say, I wish I had known. I wish I had had this education before I was put on the pill. I wish I had known that there were ways to treat the challenges and problems that I had with my periods before putting the birth control pill into my system and shutting down the ovulation. Okay. So again, Mechanism number one, to keep the woman from ovulating. That would be a good way to avoid pregnancy if you don't ovulate, right? If that doesn't work, the second mechanism is thickening the cervical mucus so that sperm can't make its way up through the cervix into the uterus, into the fallopian tube to where ovulation is happening. The third mechanism, if the first mechanism fails, the woman does ovulate, and the second mechanism fails, the sperm is able to enter in and is able to come over here and fertilize the egg. Then what happens is the lining of the uterus, which builds up, like we shared in another diagram, actually does not build up. So the third mechanism is to make a hostile environment on the uteral lining so that the uteral lining doesn't build up, right? And so if the first mechanism failed and the woman did ovulate, and the second mechanism fails and the woman, the sperm is able to enter and does make its way up through to the fallopian tube and fertilizes the egg, the cell division then begins and the baby moves its way down through the fallopian tube and into the uterus and then tries to implant and can't. Okay, so when the baby can't implant there, it's then aborted and exits out of the woman's body with her period. And the woman and the couple would have never known that they were pregnant. Okay, so that's really important for young women to know. It's really important for every woman to know and every man to know how this actually works, right? And then remembering that when we shut down ovulation, what is that also shutting down? It shuts down the estrogen and the progesterone, which both of those hormones are really important, especially in our early female development, as we develop the way that our body is going to work and our well-being. Our body is meant to work with this cyclic variation of estrogen and progesterone throughout our cycles. And it's very, very good for us to have these wonderful, naturally occurring hormones. Now, ladies, I know there are many of you who have dealt with painful periods or heavy periods or mood swings and things like that, or your daughter has, and you're just like, I don't know what else to do. And I went to my doctor and they said the best thing for me would be to go on the birth control pill. Well, I want you to know that in med school, doctors are not learning about the natural woman's cycle. Because in med school, they're learning how to prescribe medicine for problems. And there's the problem. The female reproductive system is not a problem, and it's not a disease, and it does not require medication in order to function well. But I want you to know that there is hope. If you have dealt with or you are suffering from painful periods or heavy bleeding or mood swings or PMS, there are trained or restorative reproductive medical consultants. And I would love to help you get connected with them if needed. Also, I have a free download for you with period tips on how to love your period more. And I truly believe that if we understand our cycles, then we can embrace them and actually work with them throughout our lifetime. And we can actually move to the third phase of loving our natural fertility and loving our natural cycles. I can truthfully say to you, what loving my natural cycle is that my family is complete. We don't want any more children, but I don't have to shut down my fertility. I know how to navigate when I am fertile and when I am infertile naturally. And my husband will never have to get a vasectomy or do any alterations of his body either, because we can confidently understand when we're fertile and when we're not without putting any type of medications into our bodies. So when I have my period, I actually am so happy because I see that as a sign of health and that my body has done really good work through birthing my children, through conceiving my children, feeding my children, and all the things that I've been able to do with my 4 female superpowers. So my challenge to you is Educate your daughters. If you need more information, contact me. I would love to help you. I've got many programs that can help you in understanding your own fertility, your own female functions, and teaching that to your daughters. And go ahead and grab my free download of period tips sheet, and that will really help you as well, especially if you're dealing with pain or heavy bleeding. And we can help get you in connection with adequately trained medical professionals who will work cooperatively with your cycles and your body without introducing medications or devices that shut down your normal reproductive system. So I'm so thankful for all of you moms and how you are loving on your preteen and teen daughters and ushering them into the beauty of womanhood. And it is my privilege to be your guide and friend in this journey. And I would love to support or help you in any of the things that you are dealing with throughout your lifetime and as you begin your epic journey through puberty, adolescence, and womanhood. Thanks so much, and I look forward to connecting with you more soon.